All right. Well, welcome everybody to Indexer Office Hours number 123. 123. Very easy to remember. I'll be hosting today. Abel is out of office, so it's me, Nick, with the Graph Foundation. And I'll just go ahead and get things started. Thanks to Payne for always pushing record. An OG that's been... Payne, have you been to every Indexer Office Hours ever?
Well, I think I missed a bit when I was traveling, but yeah, more or less. Yeah, I think 98% of them.
Yeah. Well, shout out to you for always pushing record. And of course, there's a lot of other OGs that have been around for a long time. So anyway, welcome. For anybody that is new to Indexer Office Hours, I'm looking around. I think I see a lot of familiar faces. But in the event that you're new, this is a town square for the graph ecosystem participants to come together and talk about the most important topics relevant to indexers. And the Graphs Indexer community is the heartbeat of the protocol, for sure. So we do love participation, and you'll have a chance today to post a question in the comments or unmute yourself and ask the question verbally. But we're going to need a lot of participation today, so please get excited to participate. It's a reminder that this session will be recorded and it'll be distributed via public channels like YouTube. So if you're uncomfortable being recorded or captured on a recording, then just take note of that. Our agenda is pretty free-flowing today, and I'll do my best to kind of push it along. And I did my best behind the scenes when I knew I'd be leading to push it along. So I'll continue to do so. But we do have a couple things to talk about. Per usual, this is a little bit self-congratulatory. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with this, but I'll go ahead and disclose there's a conflict of interest in what I'm about to do, which is highlight the most recent episode of the 𝗨𝗪𝗂𝗧 podcast. That was episode 132 with Kevin Jones. So here we are in Indexer Office Hours 123 and 𝗨𝗪𝗂𝗧 podcast 132 released. And Kevin Jones, most of you probably know Kevin, developer relations engineer at Edge and Node. And he did an incredibly good job. I thought Kevin's story was super cool. For anybody that doesn't understand the conflict of interest here, I have the opportunity to host that podcast. So if my voice is super annoying to you, don't listen to it. But if you want to learn more about Kevin Jones and the work he's doing at Edge and Node, definitely do. I think for me, like the highlight of the whole interview was the story arc of a guy who started off in graphic design, wanted to get into tech, always had a little bit of an interest in it, went to work in sales in Best Buy. And for the international audience, Best Buy is a big box retailer here in the United States where you can go buy computers and games and TVs and appliances. And so Kevin started off in sales there and then kind of moved up the chain and opened a location in Hawaii, which is paradise. I want to move to Hawaii one day maybe. And from there, just took off on this really cool trajectory that led him to Nginx, that led him to being a hobbyist in the Ethereum ecosystem, leading YouTube channel content, as well as presenting at hackathons on Scaffold ETH, and is currently working on Scaffold ETH 2. And from there, met Simone at Edge and Node and got hired on at Edge and Node as a developer relations engineer. So super cool episode. I'll post the link in the comments there. And I'm not going to give too many teasers out, but this week's episode that releases this Friday is with an indexer who has some spicy opinions about MIPS and what else? I'm trying to remember what else we talked about. Anyway, listen to this Friday. It's going to be kind of cool. A fellow indexer. All right, that takes care of that. So, Anna, I'm going to turn it over to you. You cover Repo Watch, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, Anna with GraphOps, take it away.
Thank you. So first, we have quite a few releases today on Repo Watch, but I'm just gonna send a link to 𝗨𝗪𝗂𝗧𝗧, which is the new Ethereum testnet that will be released next week, and it came up in the Repo Watch a lot, so that's why check it out when you have a chance. So with that, let's start with the execution layer clients for this week. So we have had a new release for Firehose Ethereum. This is 1.4.13, and this comes with a node that the substream service exposed from this version will send progress messages that cannot be decoded by substream's clients prior to version 1.1.12. So what that means is that the streaming of the actual data will not be affected, but clients will need to be upgraded to properly decode the new progress messages. Moving on to Nethermind, here we have had 2 releases. So the first one is version 1.20.2. This is the release that is aimed to introduce 𝗨𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗂. So check out the link I sent. The advice for this release is do not upgrade to this release because it contained a configuration issue. So please do skip to the next release, which is 1.20.3. Then we have had 2 new releases on Arbitom Nitro. So this is 2.10 beta 13 and 2.10 beta 14. They contain small changes, but please do check them out regardless. And then a new release on Heimdall. This is version 1.00 beta. It contains a new hard fork called 𝗨𝘀𝗲𝗂𝗪, which will activate a milestone on Polygon POS chain. And yeah, make sure to upgrade to Bohr version 1.00 beta before upgrading Heimdall to this version. And then moving on to consensus layer clients, new release on Teku, so version 23.9.0, a recommended update containing networking updates, optimization and bug fixes, as well as upcoming 𝗨𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗂 testnet configuration. New release on Lighthouse, again, low priority release, version 4.4.1. Minor bugs, fixes, performance improvements, which you should roll out on mainnet nodes. And it also contains the 𝗨𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗂 testnet. Moving on to GraphStack. Here we have only had 2 new releases from Subgraph Radio, so version 0.14 and version 0.15 with very small changes. And that is all I had for this week on RepoWatch. Matthew is letting us know there is an issue with the latest Firehose get for Ethereum mainnet. Streaming Fast team is working on a fix today. So please use the previous version until that ships. Thank you for that, Matthew. And Firehose Polygon plus Mumbai will need a replay from Genesis, again related to the Streaming Fast Firehose Ethereum release. All right, that's all I had, Nick. So back to you.
Thank you, Anna. Appreciate that. And I appreciate you addressing the questions in the chat there. And we won't have our typical session with Juan. I guess Juan is out of office today.
Lol.
Perfect. All right. All right. So the agenda is pretty free-flowing today. And I think there's a couple things we can talk about. I'm sure there's a couple things that you folks want to talk about. When I was thinking about what we should start with, I thought we should start with the announcement that came out on August 29th about integrating new chains to the Graph network. This is a question that's come up quite a bit in Indexer office hours, and hopefully the community is swarming around that blog post. For anybody that didn't see that, I'll post it in the chat. And to talk a little bit about what happened behind the scenes, what the current status of the integration of new chains to the network are, I've asked Pedro just to share a couple words. He's also the one that issued GIP, I think it's 0057. But Pedro, do you want to talk a little about the new chain integration process? And then once we hear from Pedro, we're going to talk about L2 transfer tools. And we've got Pablo and Tiago here to discuss some of that. So Pedro, what do you got?
Yeah. Hi, Nick. Hi, everyone. Yes, I can talk about it. By the way, I see Matthew is asking whether we're still on track for September 10th, Arbitrum 25% rewards increase. I believe so. There's a snapshot vote, I think, just passed, right? But yeah, maybe Pablo can talk about it. Yeah, there you go. Derek just posted. yeah, anyway, CIP, chain integration process. It's on the forum now. I think let me see if I have the link here. It's essentially the new, as we call it, community-based or governance-based in chain integration process. This is for subgraphs specifically, since we're all now talking about new data services. This is for subgraphs only for now. But most of you have participated on MIPS, on the MIPS program, and it's not that different. The main difference really is that anyone can now propose having mainnet support for a new chain. And by mainnet support, I do mean support for features like indexing rewards. And so the process is a 3 steps process is essentially. The first step really is to ensure that there is a graph node integration already. And if it's an EVM, this is mostly a graph node config change, like indexers know that. But if it's not an EVM-based chain, then a firehose should be built, if not built already. And for that, you can always reach out to, if you need help with this new firehose, you can always reach out to the Streaming Fast team or maybe other community members. And then stage 2 is ensuring that that chain works with the current subgraph studio. So that means working with EdgeNode on integrating either the RPC or the new firehose with their backend infrastructure, so that developers can still play around with this new chain in this staging environment, sort of free tier playground that the studio allows them to work with. And then most importantly, during this step 2 is some testing by indexers and other community members. So that means just running that infrastructure on testnet, indexing some subgraphs like examples from the team. And then the plan is to run the tool that's currently being built by EdgeNode called Graphics. I think we'll learn a little bit more about it in the upcoming weeks. But Graphics will allow us to check for POI discrepancies, which is critical, of course, to ensure we have determinism for that particular chain. And if not, root cause it and potentially work with the blockchain team to fix those issues, regardless if they are at the RPC or firehose level. And that's important because step 3 really is going back to the council and just ask for mainnet support. And pretty much like we did with MIPS, the council will need to look into QoS data, quality of service data, and these POI discrepancies. And so that's why those reports will be key. So yeah, once the council approves it and we have studio support, that chain should be supported on mainnet with indexing rewards, and anyone can serve that particular chain. It's a fairly lightweight process and simple one. It shouldn't come as a surprise for those participating on MIPS. And yeah, if you're listening to this and you're a chain that wants to follow this process, there's a new category in the forum. That's where you should start. But I'll also link here and add it to, yeah, I'll just add here also the link. Let me do it now. I'll just reference the new category in the forum. That's how you apply or how you start the process. There's a template there. So you just need to fill that template really. And then we'll get in touch. And the foundation will help you going through these different stages. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Another quick note is, as I mentioned, Streaming Fast can build a new firehose for new chains. And also the studio integration means for providing EdgeNode with the RPC or firehose endpoints, as I mentioned. That which means that you can either self-host it yourself or just go back to our community members and have them running for you. We've been working with Pinax, as you know, as a core dev team. they've been working with EdgeNode for a while. They've been running a lot of this infrastructure. They are already supporting the studio and the hosted service, so that's an option if you want help with hosting. But again, it's a public and open process, so anyone can apply, and anyone can do as they intend, as long as they follow this 3-stage process.
Thanks, Pedro. So why don't we pause here? Does anybody have any questions about the new chain integration? You can post it in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask Pedro directly. Take a few questions here, and then we'll turn our attention to L2 transfer tools.
I was about to ask any bets, like Matthew said, which chain will be next.
That's a good question.
I think
Pedro probably doesn't know, but Pedro, it's true that there's been a lot of activity, a lot of interest expressed by teams that want to get started on this right away. Is that true?
Yes. Some teams I've been talking to some teams. They haven't posted in the forum yet, but they are drafting some things. So I'm just helping them in that process, going through that process. Hopefully soon we'll see some chains doing it.
Is it true that BSC got like insanely hard to even run? Because that's what Sebastian just told me this morning. It's like everyone in DRPC is having issues with BSC.
I think only Matthew's running BSC here. I don't know.
He used to beat Coin as well. I'm not sure if he's still doing it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're running. If you're running it off a fire hose mostly or not, or if you're running it off of an RPC. Well, BSC isn't stopping, so the thing is getting bigger all the time. And then there was this issue with 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗳𝗂 versus BSC, and it sort of dropped, but then somebody took over, but the quality doesn't seem to be too great. Yeah, I'm not sure how keen I am on doing BSC.
Got it, okay.
Anybody else? Questions? Pedro, you got a shout out from Marc Andre there on the wording of the GIP. That's super cool. A lot of work went into that, so happy for you. Anybody else have any questions about the GIP? There was a blog post, of course, that just kind of mirrored that announcement. And I think this is super exciting. Can't wait to see who the first one is.
One question, because we've got Optimism, which is like, almost there or whatever. Do we have anyone that's kind of like, or let me rephrase that question. Are we typically going to have someone that's like, they are the point of contact on that specific chain's integration? Like I would assume it's whoever posts the forum post for that chain. But for some of these larger chains like Optimism and Base and stuff like that, are we to assume that that's going to be someone from their teams, or is it something that people from within the Graph ecosystem should be spearheading, or what are we doing with that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I can answer that. It's a mix of both. I mean, there are some chains the foundation can kickstart the process. The ones we know we want to have mainnet support for, say the ones we couldn't do with MIPS. I can author some forum posts. Anyone can do it as well. Meaning that if those chains don't do it themselves, and if we feel like there's capacity and bandwidth for indexers to test it and we can move through the process, then either I or any of you could do it. Again, it's nice that the chains themselves do it, because that's a commitment from their part that the client will be properly maintained, and we will always be able to reach out whenever we have issues. but it could be a mix. Like maybe someone from the client's team, that maybe they are willing to help if they know this is a thing, but they just don't want to get involved or write a forum post or whatever. And you can act as a proxy, whatever, really, as long as we see them helping out and their commitment. It doesn't really have to be authored by them specifically. So it could be a mix. And yes, the foundation will kickstart some of those in the near future.
I think I'm not quite seeing the more quality kind of metrics for support, like X amount of indexers need to be running the support for this chain, or there have to be data snapshots available that are recent, things like that. For on one hand, making sure that it's doable for indexers to get up and running in a reasonable amount of time, and on the other hand, to sort of avoid that this becomes almost an economic attack on the protocol, where some chain gets approved and only one indexer can run it and potentially signal a shit ton of signal on whatever subgraph, and nobody else is able to join it. We have seen the signal type of attacks before on the network. This could repeat itself in a similar fashion, with the access to given chains that we are adding. And I'm not sure if those things have been quite discussed yet.
Yeah, Kun, it's a great point. I can probably address at least some of that. While the GIP doesn't specifically cover KPIs for quality of service type of metrics, very specific ones, kind of the current GIP as it is, it's a little bit out in the open, but we do say as an exit criteria on step 2, which is testnet testing, that there's got to be some community validation on the integration itself. So it might be that, for instance, say we have a chain going through the process, and a few indexers go onto the forum and say, hey, this doesn't really work, it's not stable, it's not reliable. That should be enough for the council probably not to approve indexing rewards for that chain until we actually fix it and we're at a better stage. But yeah, we're not specifically listing any KPIs or thresholds that need to be met at the moment. As for the other question you mentioned, I don't really recall what was the other issue. Yeah, I think you said 2 different things.
Yeah, the first part was more about operational support, so having things like snapshots of the chain data available.
Yeah, again, that's a great point. And if we feel like that's really a hard requirement, we could probably update the GIP if we all agree that's a hard requirement. Because it's not there, we can assume it's not. But again, if it's a really hard to maintain chain and hard to sync and super, if indexers feel like snapshots are needed, then that's the sort of feedback you can leave on the forum. And if you feel like you'll be more comfortable having snapshots to operate that chain on mainnet efficiently and reliably, then that's probably something that the council should be aware of. And we could probably wait for either someone from the community to start releasing those snapshots, or we try to convince the actual chains to do it. I mean, as part of MIP, some of them did, which was nice. It's in their best interest as well. So could probably, again, I think it's on a chain basis, but we can use the forum to provide all of that feedback. As it is, snapshots are not a hard requirement right now. Yeah, I agree with Matthew. People should add comments to the GIP about what they think is required. Yeah, agree, 100%. That's why it's on the forum. Yep, and that's good feedback too, Cohen. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, if you do have more insight or more comments, please comment in the GIP. And I think we'll turn our attention away toward L2 transfer tools, But if you have questions, you can keep pinging Pedro in the chats there. But thank you very much, Pedro, for your time and for that overview. All right. Pablo. Pablo is back. Tiago is here as well. Let's talk about L2 transfer tools and what's going on. Congratulations, by the way, on the rollout there and everything that happened. Seen a lot of positive comments from the community on that interface and the smooth process. And I think delegators over onto Arbitrum, let's just take a look right now. I don't know if this is like a vanity metric or a metric that this indexer community cares a ton about, but we're at 601 and 51 indexers presently. So super good work. What's some updates, Pablo? What can you share with us about L2 transfer tools?
Thanks, Nick, and hi, everybody. Well, I mean, you all know that the transfer tools were launched. It seems that there's been some good usage. We've seen, we've been monitoring the situation. It seems like a lot of people were using them. There were a few small issues here and there, but we've been fixing them whenever they cropped up. And so far, it seems that at least at the contract level, everything was working well. And the UI seems to be working, except for a few edge cases that have been fixed or are being fixed. We would like feedback if there's anything else you folks see that might need tweaking or anything like that. But I did want to give, again, the update that we are moving forward with the rewards increase on L2 to 25% and decreasing it on L1 to 75% this Sunday, so September 10th. I can't specify exactly at what time that's going to happen. I can just assure you that it's going to happen that day. We're going to have the transaction set up for the council hopefully today. So they're going to start signing, and we're going to make sure to coordinate with council members so that we can get that last signature on Sunday and then execute it and monitor that everything goes as planned. I also wanted to remind everyone that in parallel with this, we have the exponential rebates upgrade going on. So step one happened today, and Tomas just sent an update on the announcements channel on Discord. That we've done that first step, and that means that channel dispute epochs is now 1. So that means there's a shorter time frame between closing an allocation, collecting the query fees, and then claiming the rebate pool. If you close an allocation, the index agent does this automatically, but just so you're aware that at channel dispute epochs being 1 means you also need to collect query fees immediately or within a day of closing the allocations. And then the claim step can happen immediately at the following day. But also the big warning is do not close any allocations on Saturday or Sunday until the upgrade is complete. Because do not close allocations on those days if you want to claim query fees, because it takes at least a day for you to be able to claim those query fees from the rebate pool. And by the time that happens, the rebate pools won't exist anymore because we'll have upgraded to exponential rebates where there is no pool anymore. It's just this exponential formula. And whenever you collect the query fees, those are immediately converted with the rebate formula. I think that's all I had. I don't know if I'm missing anything, but if there's any questions or anything else you folks would like to comment, please let me know.
Pablo, should we broadcast what you just said there about closing allocations in an indexer channel in Discord to make sure it's more? There's only a handful here, but there's 51 active.
Yeah, there was that announcement from Tomas earlier today, or like maybe a few minutes ago. I don't know if there was anything of that missing there. If there is anything missing, I'm going to check after the call, and we can send another blast.
Sure. I guess it's already posted, so I missed that. Thank you, Gamma. All right. Any questions about L2 transfer tools, including feedback? I think Pablo's open to getting some feedback on that whole thing.
Yeah, or the exponential rebates as well. And yeah, good point, Matthew. We will send another reminder on Friday.
You seen that question, Pablo, in the chat, or do you want me to read
Yeah.
it? Okay.
I'm reading. So call of August 29 email. I'm aware of that email, but what needs to be done is the vesting contract has already been transferred to the Arbitrum network via transfer tools, and the beneficiary in the Arbitrum has also changed to a different address. No, there's no need to call accept block on the L2 side. Accept block is only needed on the L1 side. Transferred, so that the L2 vesting contract that is created through the transfer tools doesn't need that accept block step, because that is only it's kind of a safety measure, so that when someone gives you a vesting contract, if you don't accept it, it can be canceled, and that's just to prevent if the vesting contract was sent to the incorrect address or something like that, and therefore with the accept block you prove that you control the beneficiary wallet. But that's not needed on L2, because that's automatically created from the through the transfer, and it's already accepted when it makes it to the other side. You do need to do the approved protocol step on the L2 side if you want to then interact with the L2 vesting contract and with the protocol. That's the only detail, I guess.
Couple other things there. Derek notes it would be interesting data to see the progress on L1 to L2 is how many queries are running through Ethereum endpoints versus Arbitrum endpoints. Obviously, P2P published that pretty cool dashboard, but I don't think it accounts for that. Is there anybody else that has a dashboard that does that? Josh, how are you today? Are you seeing any of these other questions, Pablo?
Yeah, so what is the name of the function to approve? That's approve protocol. I've also written it in the chat. You just call it once from the beneficiary at L2 and it's done, right? Yes, that's correct. And it's not like you're still safe even if you don't call it. That function, all that it does is it gives the token allowance to the relevant protocol contracts, so that if you want to stake or delegate from the funds that you hold in your vesting contract balance on L2, so that you can do that. But once you've transferred the vesting contract to L2, it's already yours, it's already accepted, and it's already safe in that sense. So if you've delegated all of your tokens, you don't need to call that necessarily. It's just like if you ever need to delegate again or do any other actions with the protocol from the vesting contract. I think it shouldn't be necessary. Like if you just want to undelegate in the future or something like that, it's probably fine if you don't call it. But yeah, for things to work, like if tools that accept that we don't have a lot of tools, but like if you need to interact with a protocol, it's gonna expect you to have called that before to do it.
Thanks, Pablo. Anybody else? Questions? Feedback? Things you'd like to see different? Things you'd like to see improved? Compliments? Things that Pablo and the team got right? Nice. Sorry about that, Pablo. Maybe he'll do it, though. Any other, I see people typing, so I guess we're kind of waiting. I hate to be sitting in awkward silence for too long, so I keep kind of talking, but I can also just let it sit radio silence. Yeah, Derek. Hate to break the news to you, Pablo, but Pablo's now Pablo. Yeah, play. I'd love to know I'm not an indexer, as everybody here knows. I'd love to know the plan of indexers on making the move, because it's been confusing to me. And again, it might be just because I'm non-technical and don't understand everything, but it seems to me that indexers are waiting to see what the delegators do. But in some instances, I think delegators are waiting to see what the indexers are going to do. So it's a little bit of chicken and egg, and I think the incentives will take care of this, and the marketplace will just kind of dictate what happens next. But any indexers have a plan of how they're dealing with that chicken and egg issue, or de-risking the way they do that? Is that an interesting question? Bueller?
I mean, I enabled the possibility for transfer on my big indexer, and I will make sure that if no new indexes join me on Ethereum, that there is no over delegation. So right now it's up to the individual delegators to choose as they want. It's possible on my big indexer. I'm not forcing the issue, because I'm still maintaining proper indexing operations on Ethereum mainnet as well, and I'm guessing that it will take some time. I'm not in any sense making a push. I think it's still quite early in the migration process. There's a lot of things that need to happen still and need to smoothen out. I think the amount of shit. I read the ping and I forgot what I was going to say. The amount of delegators on Arbitrum seems to be relatively low, which makes setting your commission parameters also a bit tricky, which might in turn either rip you off, or either be not advantageous to delegators to move over, because they see a number that's not to their advantage, which of course you could change when you see you receive new delegations. So there is a few different angles and a few aspects that complicate stuff. But yeah, I enabled it, and now it's up to delegators. I'm not making a big move or push out of it. I think it might be a little too early. As indexers, we will always be at the front of things. So partially doing that is our job, and then the rest will follow.
Appreciate that response. That's informative to me as a delegator and somebody interested in what indexers are thinking. And there's been some great comments in the chat as well.
Yeah, we've moved about 20% of our total stake, and kind of our take is we'll start scaling that as indexing rewards scale. So with this 25% bump, we probably won't transfer too much more than we currently have. But then we would next initiate a transfer stake at the 50% marker, unless, of course, we had enough delegators move over to where we were running low on space. Then we might adjust. But right now we're trying to keep in alignment with the network bumps.
Makes sense. So we should see, based on what you two have said, we should see some action following Sunday's increase by some indexers potentially.
I mean, that I would say both on indexers and delegators, that's something that we should expect to see, because the rewards on Arbitrum are, going to be 5 times what they are today on Sunday. So
for sure,
there's definitely the incentive to do that.
I've been surprised at the number of delegators that have already moved. I mean, not in a cynical way. I think I had a number in my brain, and it's been larger than what I thought. So it's been cool to see that within the delegation community. I'm going to post a fun little poll in the chat here. So if you've got access to it, I'm just coming up with ways to spend our time together and have fun. But here's an impromptu poll. Just respond with the color there. How long you think it will take for the network to migrate and move over to L2. Might be fun. If it's not fun, don't vote. Anybody else have any comments on this?
Oh man, I really hope That's like the shorter side of that time frame. But we'll see. I wanted to comment to answer Alex's question, and it's also something that I wanted to bring up as well. That is between the 25% and 50% increases. GAP52 specifies at least 2 weeks, and based on our previous discussions, we were thinking to actually do it exactly 2 weeks, considering how it seems like people are moving pretty fast as soon as transfer tools were launched, and I imagine after the 25% it might happen as well. So unless there's any strong opposition, we were thinking September 24th as a target for that 50% bump. But we would be open to hearing if anyone has any concerns with that approach. And obviously we would check again after the 25% bump.
That's a quick ramp up.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that we'd want to track a little bit with what's happening with delegation. I mean, so far we have seen a lot of delegators moving, and I suspect that these are the people that are closely tracking the protocol. But a lot of the larger delegations seem to be, sitting still, and maybe that moves after the 25%. But I don't think we can fully know what's going to happen with some of those larger amounts until we see that. And I'd just be a little. I think it might be a little bit early to call a date on that until we see what happens. That's just my opinion, though.
I think that's a very good point. Maybe we can keep that as a kind of a target for now, but checking again at the indexer office hours next week and see what actually happens after the 25% increase, and maybe confirming even in the following one. Obviously, it takes a bit of time to coordinate with the council and everything, but they're already aware that this is kind of the tentative timeline. And I think we can keep that feedback in mind and see what actually happens after the next bump and see if it's still realistic to make it for September 24th, or if we need to wait a bit more.
Well, I think it might be a bit chicken or egg problem, because right now at the 5%, and we are pretty much at 5% occupation. It's too early for a lot of delegators to move. So we go to 25 this weekend, which frees up a bunch of space. If we already can commit that in 2 weeks after that we will be bumping to 50, and then combine this with a communication push, this is actually a strong motivation for delegators to also start moving over, for subgraphs who haven't moved over to also start moving over, because you know that in 2.5 weeks from now, half of the network incentive is going to be on Arbitrum. Where if we keep in the we'll see, maybe we'll discuss, maybe we'll increase, maybe this isn't as clear. Where if we say as soon as possible that on the 24th we're gonna make the push, or maybe on it would be October 1st, and a week later we're gonna make the push to 50. It's a very clear environment, and I think communication wise, in terms of getting people to move, this has its advantages as well.
That's true, and well, that also kind of reflects what the GIP was doing by not specifying specific numbers of delegation that should transfer for each of the bumps, and kind of thinking incentives would go first and then delegations would follow the rewards. And in terms of query traffic, I think it's still going to be mostly Ethereum for a little bit, but after the 25% bump and increasingly in communications, at least from core dev teams, we're starting to say, Arbitrum is the place to go if you want to publish a subgraph. So I'm expecting maybe it takes a while for existing subgraphs to transfer over, but if there's going to be a bunch of new subgraphs on L2, that might hit the scales.
Great points. On the poll, the move to L2 will likely conclude over the following time frame. 1 vote for 3 to 5 years, 4 votes for 1 to 2 years, and some people are still thinking. So it was impromptu, not very scientific, but maybe interesting. I'd be curious to know as well, are you indexers reaching out to delegators, potential delegators via Twitter or Telegram or some other way to notify them that you've made the move? I know I've seen a few indexers using socials to let their delegators know. It's really hard to figure out how else you would do that, but also wonder if you're getting the support you need as well. Do you know what to share with them? Do you have access to the videos? And are you feeling like you have to provide support to delegators? Those types of things. Anybody else have any questions for Pablo or anybody else on the topic of L2? Looks like we're 9 minutes to end, so we can also just kind of open it up to any questions at all. It can be on new chain integration process, can be on L2 transfer, or anything else. So, yeah, Tiago wants to discuss some indexer agent issues. Please, thank you. Tiago, do you want to unmute yourself and take the time? We might be having some technical difficulties there. Anyway, Tiago, feel free anytime you're ready to share some points about indexer agent issues. Feel free, jump on in. Anybody else, unmute yourself or type in the chat. Tiago, you're back? Want to give it a shot?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, sorry. Yeah, right when I was about to say it, a lightning bolt struck nearby, and I lost.
It's a sign. Don't say it then.
All right, just some quick announcement about the indexer agent. I've been seeing some users complaining about the indexer agent closing and reopening allocations on a short, at short durations, like 3 epochs or 4 epochs. And I just want to share to everyone that we did some investigation, and it is really happening, but this is the intended design. So whenever the allocation lifetime global rule or specific indexing rule isn't set, the agent will consider an allocation expired if it lasts longer than or somewhat near to the staking contract max allocation.
We lost you, Tiago. Sounds like maybe the lightning took Tiago offline again. So we can wait a minute as he rejoins. All Perfect. 6 minutes left. Anybody who wants to say anything, feel free. 𝗨𝘀𝗲𝗂, are you back?
Okay, I'm back.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
Sorry, it happened again. Another lightning bolt.
We're ready.
All right, sorry, folks. By the way, I was just saying that it is expected for the agent to close allocations after a specific number of epochs, depending on the network. We need to check each network individually. From our tests, 𝗀𝗲𝗄 was about 3 to 4 epochs, and Arbitrum 𝗀𝗲𝗄 was about 7 to 8 epochs. So whenever allocations are open, can you? I hope you can't hear the thunderstrucks, but okay. So if you want to keep an allocation for longer than that, you need to set the allocation lifetime rule to the number you intend to keep it open for, or set the auto renewal option to false. We don't recommend that, but it's up to each indexer to choose. So yeah, just to give a feedback to the community, we thought it was a bug, but and we don't know why it wasn't being enforced like that before, but it's working now. So yeah, it's a very weird announcement because it's just to confirm things are okay. Yeah, and if I can just use some minutes left, we are currently implementing a feature to check every subgraph freshness before taking the data for granted. So the agent uses the epoch subgraph and the network subgraph. We have been seeing some incidents where okay, I think I'm still around. Okay, so we're still having some incidents with outdated data from the network subgraph and epoch subgraph. So we are adding checks for the agents to verify if the epoch subgraph or network subgraph are close to the chain head. We call those the freshness checks. So the agent will start to check every subgraph is fresh before accepting the data. And if the data is not fresh, it will retry, it will wait and retry and log a message, of course. But I just want to give a heads up for indexers because this will be new configuration fields. This will be network specific. So the number of blocks for a subgraph to be considered fresh is network dependent. So in Arbitrum, this might be a very much higher number than for 𝗀𝗲𝗄 or Ethereum. And indexers can also choose how long to wait before retrying. Just giving a heads up because there will be lots of those log messages in the new release. But yeah, feel free to reach out for configuration support. I'll be more than happy to help.
Thanks, 𝗨𝘀𝗲𝗂. I love the sound effects you added for that rainstorm. Sounds real. Very cool. All right. Be safe, joking aside. That's pretty intense, man.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Any other questions before we conclude? Got 1 minute to go. Yeah. Incredible. There was one lightning strike there, thunder. That was pretty intense, 𝗨𝘀𝗂. I thought maybe I was in your house. All right. Well, that'll conclude the Indexer Office Hours session for today. You're welcome to hang back and ask questions if you need to. Shout out to everybody for coming. And thank you so much, Pablo, Pedro, for taking the lead, 𝗨𝘀𝗂 for that update there, and for all the great chat in the comments. And I guess GraphOps will be back next week. and we'll get after it. So thanks, everybody. Have a good week.